There we go. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of our Workflow Wednesday, sort of live Q&A podcast. This week is a little different. We're joined by Brett. There you are. Oh no, over there, Brett Nordquist. He's a part of our marketing team, and then our special guest for today is Brandon Carr, the IT lead for Contractor Nation. So just to get started, Brandon, give a little introduction of who you are, what you do for Contractor Nation, and then we'll hand it back over to Brett and kind of give a little explanation of what he does and why he's here.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me. Yeah, my name is Brandon Carr. I'm the IT team lead here at Contractor Nation in Seymour, Connecticut. You could probably see in the background, we got hit pretty hard the past few days with some snow. I've been with the company for 10 years. Right out of high school, I went to a technical high school for what was known as IST, or Information Systems Technology.
Oh, cool.
Thankfully, they gave me the skills in software and hardware, kind of a generalization of IT, and it exposes you to a lot of what's going on in the field. And it really came in handy for getting a job right out of high school with a company like this that just so happened to be in my hometown.
Oh, that's neat. And Brett?
Yeah, I'm Brett. I've been with Puget Systems since about 2011 and worked in various roles. I started out as a builder, worked in sales consulting, and then packed up my family and moved to southern Utah. And since that time, I've been working on a lot of the content creation with case studies and our company blog and collecting feedback from customers. So Brandon and I worked together, about a year and a half ago, creating a case study that you can read on our website.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
Thank you again for that.
That was a lot of fun.
It was.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And so actually, it's good that you brought up the case study, because that focused a bit on Brandon's role as a part of the media production department for Contractor Nation. And so Contractor Nation helps out other contractors with their business building and things like that, right?
Yeah, for sure. We're here for business coaching, marketing. We have an internet marketing team that helps them with a website. We have a marketing team that helps them with graphics, any kind of things they want to do in the area of marketing. We actually have a local company that our owner started originally, so we have an idea of what works for us, and we can tell them what's working for us, what isn't.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, cool. Right on. So I guess just to start off, what kind of software and tools do you guys use to create the content?
Yeah, for sure. So the media production team in Contractor Nation is known as the iStar Media Group. And they basically work with Adobe in the entire Creative Cloud, whether it be Premiere, Audition, etc., to create video productions and audio productions for not only our company, but all of the dealers or contractors in our network.
Oh, right on. That's pretty cool. And so it's like training materials or commercials and things?
Yeah, whatever they need done. A lot of commercials. We have an annual convention every year. So a lot of the year is them spending time making the material for that. Yeah, pretty much anything that needs to be done in that space, whether it be social media content, for Instagram or YouTube. They made documentaries before for our owner, and yeah, they can handle it.
Oh, that's cool. That's actually really neat. You don't hear that sort of thing very often, where outside of strict marketing companies that and that tends to be just really general type content. So it's neat that you guys focus on a particular industry and help out in that way.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really cool. That's pretty cool. So like Brett was saying, it's been a year and a half since the case study. How have things changed for you guys since everything?
Yeah,
since last year.
Yeah, it's been quite a year. A lot of masks.
Mm-hmm.
Going through a lot of masks. I myself use a reusable one, so I've used the same 10 and just bleached them in the laundry. But I know the surgical masks are a bit better. But yeah, we do everything we can to be safe in terms of keeping a distance from one another. And our media team might be out in the field on shots, so they do everything in their everything they can to use hand sanitizer, stay away from one another, masks, getting tested, all that type of thing.
Oh, right on. And has the workflow changed much? Are you guys having to use any sort of like cloud services or anything like that to get the production side finished?
Yeah, for sure. So usually we have a full office, but because of everything going on, a lot of people are working from home.
Mm-hmm.
So they utilize our VPN, and they're able to remote into their desktops in the office, which are Puget.
Oh, right on.
Thank you for that. And they're able to get their work done that way.
Right on. And has that been a challenge, like to kind of rework things that way?
Challenge, yeah, for sure. I think now they're pretty much used to the current workflow, but starting off, making sure everyone has the VPN software at home, kind of getting them used to using it, renaming their machines specifically so it's easy for them to remote into, that type of thing for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I guess, like, have you guys had to change the hardware or anything like that? Like, what sort of stumbling blocks were there in those early stages?
I think we got lucky in the hardware area. A lot of the team, works on media production from home in their spare time. It's something they like to do as a hobby. They love their work. They're passionate about it. So thankfully, at home, they usually have what needs to be what they need to get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
And in the office, we slowly have upgraded over the years. I think every maybe year we get 2 Puget machines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they kind of decide who on the team needs to use which one for what purpose and which ones are better at other things. So that's work for them.
Yeah. Cool. Brett, do you have any question?
About the content, was kind of going over, like, you create just the different pieces, everything from training videos to promotional to marketing. I think you even mentioned like doing some small documentaries. I'm interested to get your take on the challenges of creating content for both an internal audience in terms of like training video, but then also with an external audience. What are some of the challenges that you face in doing that?
Yeah, for sure. I think what they focus on most is pre-production, making sure they have an idea of what they want to say with this piece. If it's training materials, we used to have a lot of in-person trainings, but now it's kind of setting up, alone. Someone in a room by themselves is going to train, people that are watching via camera. And if it's something like a documentary, our owner actually competes in a motorcycle race down in Baja. So they have to go down there, travel. So again, pre-production, making sure they have the equipment they need on this travel, getting the shots that they need. So, what cameras do they need? How many drones do they need? All that to get the footage, getting it back to us here at home base, if you will, or headquarters, so that it can be worked on. And then there's the actual production itself, and then there's post-production. So that's where the Puget machines really come in handy with being able to handle the work that they're doing.
Yeah. And you have it looks like you have a large studio there, Brandon. Like, have you been able to use that, or has that been reduced due to the last, year or so of COVID? Have people been able to use the facility? Or I think you mentioned a lot of that videos being done individually from home. How's that worked out?
Yeah, so the area that they work in with all the machines is kind of probably at 25% capacity. I think they alternate who's coming in, who's staying home, that type of thing. And then in terms of a standalone studio, they built one actually this year at one of our other buildings in our corporate park. And that's really come in handy because you can have 1 or 2 people at a distance with a nice background at any moment. Not a lot of setup needs to be done. It's kind of dedicated for that purpose with lights and the whole thing.
Very cool. So you've been able to use it. I mean, we're in the same boat at Puget in terms of like building the computers. There's a number of restrictions. We've been able to maintain that, and the business has been as good as ever, because a lot of people that have migrated out of the office to home do need powerful machines in order to do their job. So it's been, sad for the country, but it has been, in terms of business, pretty good. It's glad to hear this. It sounds like the same for you guys as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm curious about some of the more, I guess, like technical challenges in having a remote, or with having to not just the like physical restrictions like masks and things like that, but what sort of the technical challenges have there been over the last like year or so?
I don't think that many, to be honest. I think the team was kind of experienced and ready for anything.
Okay.
And they have the hardware that they need to get the job done. So, you were saying, there is some difference of how they're doing it, but I don't think much has changed in the hardware space.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Actually, we have a very interesting question from Twitch. Deddy asks, "I'm curious, has this time taught?" Or, I'm just going to quote it specifically. "I'm curious, have this time teach them something new that caught you by surprise in terms of workflow or efficiency?"
Yeah, for sure. I would say, it's kind of a buzzword, but pivoting and being able to, adapt to any situation very quickly has really played a part in this past year plus now, it seems like.
Has the content changed much?
I would say that they're trying to focus on the idea and the belief that we have of being safe at what we do. So I would say, originally you might have a normal team of guys, let's say, working on a house that they're getting footage of. It didn't really matter how close they were or what they were doing or wearing. But I think now they have an idea of showing, the audience who's watching and viewers that we're, social distancing, and maybe there's a mask on in the footage that they're doing, that type of thing.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Right on. I'm curious, and I think maybe we've touched on this a little bit, but the software or anything, again, like you were saying, some people have to go off to different locations and whatnot. Do you guys use anything specific to bring that all together?
So we have network attached storage on site, and they have access to that from home via the VPN.
Okay.
A lot of the footage that they take on their, SD cards and that type of thing, they're able to offload to external hard drives, and they always make sure they have backups of everything. And then once it reaches our storage here, obviously that backs up via snapshots and off to Google Cloud.
Oh, right on. I'm also curious, is there any particular, project that stands out as your favorite or challenging that you're really proud of solving?
Myself or the team, like a project that they've worked on, such as the documentaries?
Let's say both. We'll start with you, and then maybe one from the whole team.
Myself, I guess from them and their perspective, I'm happy that we've been able to work together with Puget to make sure that they have the machines that they need to get the job done. I mean, that's first and foremost. If they're not happy or they're not satisfied with, the way their hardware and equipment is operating to get their job done on a day-to-day basis, then I'm not happy. And on their perspective, I would have to give a shout out to a documentary that they made for our owner in that dirt bike race called Into the Dust. And it's a 90-minute full feature documentary.
Oh, wow.
It's great work. Kind of gives a little background in the beginning about our company, our owner, his story, and then this kind of a race that he has found himself in, and overcoming some challenges in that.
That's pretty cool. So you said that you'd worked with Contractor Nation for 10 years. How has your role evolved from the beginning?
Let's see. I was hired in 2010, and at the time the company was known as Basement Systems. That wasn't even Contractor Nation yet. And Larry Janeski, our owner, started Basement Systems in 1987. And it started as just a basement waterproofing company.
Okay.
And he kind of learned the industry, learned the ins and outs, and realized that he actually had some ideas for products that he could patent to do to make the jobs easier, more efficient. And once he patented those products, he realized that there are probably other contractors doing what he does across the nation, maybe multiple nations. And he wanted to basically share that with them. So he went on a road trip, believe it or not.
Oh, neat.
Locations, and basically started this headquarters or network of basement systems and basement waterproofing contractors, all at the same time having a local dealership in Connecticut, doing what he does best, and that's waterproofing basements. Eventually he got into encapsulating crawl spaces and then finishing basements. And so the tagline is all things basementy. And then he worked on, once you realize that this industry is very similar to other contracting contractors, maybe roofing, fencers, that type of thing, HVAC, electricians. It's all about, marketing and selling these jobs to customers who have a need for these services. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of overlap, and he realized that it would make more sense to rebrand or come up with an umbrella brand, and that is Contractor Nation. Mm-hmm. And we have all those kinds of contractors that I've mentioned in our network, and we're able to help them and teach them things like how to serve customers most efficiently and properly, in our opinion, and how to do things like marketing. We have a team in our company called the Treehouse Internet Group, mm-hmm. And they actually build websites, even at no cost, if you'd like, and they simply make their compensation based on how many leads we get you. Oh. So if we don't get you any leads, we haven't done a good job. You don't have to pay anything.
Wow.
Whereas if we do a really good job for you, you're ranked number one in your local area for a specific term, like electrician in XYZ city, and you're getting more business than you've ever had before, and you're growing and hiring, and that means that we've done a good job and we're compensated more.
Right on.
Do you have software, Brandon, that you offer? I assume some of the contractors are just getting started and they may not understand all the tools that they're going to need as they grow their business, but are there just in terms of like bringing things together, you certainly create these assets, but are there software tools that you create for them or they can purchase or license from you that will help them run their business?
So there's probably two things. The Treehouse Internet Group has a team of software developers that have made an in-house content management system. And inside that, we have something that are known as widgets. And these widgets have different purposes, whether it's testimonials, before and after pictures, reviews, for example, for like giving a 5-star review or 1-star review, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And there's so many of these widgets that a contractor can use to create content for this website that we built them. And that widget that they use and that content that they create can be localized to the customer who gave them that content. So, for example, if you get a testimonial from someone in XYZ city, and someone comes to the website that has an IP in XYZ city, our websites dynamically show that content to that person. So they feel better about, okay, does this company serve my area? Oh, they must, because they have before and after pictures in the area. They have testimonials and reviews in the area, that type of thing.
Nice.
Okay, yeah.
And secondly, our owner has actually created a platform called the School of Entrepreneurship. And it's basically an online course. There are also in-person courses, but not currently, where he teaches contractors at their own pace. So they could watch one video a day, they could watch 10 videos a day. And anything from accounting, marketing, serving customers with something that he calls wow service, or that we call wow service, which is serving a customer so well that they go, wow. We've all emailed a company to contact us, and you'll get an automatic email that they'll get back to you in 72 hours. And you go, oh my gosh, I want to talk to someone now. And then you call them and you get hit with the auto robotic, pressing 1, press 2, and you're stuck in this queue and you can't get to someone. And you pull up to their office maybe because it's really important, and no sign, you're not sure who to talk to, what to go. So that's just a poor customer experience. Mm-hmm. We believe in, being quick and efficient with customers. If someone comes in for whatever reason, we're there to help them. Anyone, how can I help you? Isn't what we say. We say, I can help you. Mm-hmm. If someone, emails, we try to get back to them as soon as possible. That type of thing, just providing them with service that makes them say, wow.
We're kind of in the same group. I think sometimes the bar isn't set very high. If you've tried to schedule any contract worker on your home, or even call another, some computer companies, but it sometimes, it's just helping them because they're experts in what they do, but running the business side, they may not understand everything that's needed. And then you guys are there with all these other companies that can assist them in that.
Exactly. We've all called a contractor and just have gotten hello.
Yeah.
Versus, hey, you've reached so-and-so services, I can help you, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So we have actually a question from Twitter. Eric Brown asks, what pain points did you guys have that pushed you to needing a solution like Puget Systems?
I think it all came down to the amount of work that we already had on our plate before realizing that they needed more powerful machines. And then realizing, the amount of time and effort that would go into building them ourselves, which we could certainly do, but it does take away from, our other responsibilities, while at the same time realizing we could probably build them the machines and they would be fine, that there are probably, professionals that do this on a daily basis that can do this and troubleshoot and make sure that they run diagnostics on everything and that there are no problems or faults with the parts. I built a few computers in my day, and there's always something that wasn't plugged in quite properly, and all at the same time, these team members are waiting to produce content, so we didn't want to be a bottleneck in any way.
Wow. How large is the team, the media production team?
Media production team is probably around 12 people.
Okay, wow, right on. And I guess, do you have an estimate of the amount of content? You said you kind of reached a point where it was too much, and so how much was that? Is too much?
You mean in terms of the content they were producing?
Yeah, I guess so. Just, I mean, the load that you guys produce. I feel like I'm not quite getting the question out correctly.
That's all right. Yeah, I think currently, it's probably based on other industries where you have just a backload of work and projects that need to be done, and you kind of prioritize, which ones are most valuable and which ones are most important to the company at this time.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess, is there? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me try to say this properly. I guess it just comes down to what are you, the media production team, able to do now that you couldn't before?
I guess as technology, gets better and kind of different tools come to the consumer area, such as drones. 10 years ago when I started, I don't think that's something that existed. Whereas now they're using drones, weekly, monthly.
That's cool.
They get a lot of use out of the drones. So you'll see in the shots of different projects that they do, overheads and things like that, getting kind of that bird's eye view.
Right on. That's pretty cool. There's another question from Twitch from Deddy again. Is there any tech that you're excited about? 3D printers, AI, augmented reality, big data in terms of work?
Yeah, all those excite me. We have a 3D printer currently at one of our buildings that's creating different odds and ends for some of the patented products that our owner has created. So that's a lot easier for that team at that building who's responsible for assembling certain parts than having to wait on deliveries, for example. And they are also able to use software to customize, and try different things to make the parts more efficient. AI, that should be very interesting going forward. I know our Treehouse Internet group is always trying to figure out how we can utilize Alexa or Siri, for example, so that when someone says, something to the effect of, basement waterproofing in Seymour, Connecticut, for example, how can we make sure that our company is showing up in that type of search with AI?
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm curious too. Just kind of in a general sense about the AR VR in the construction industry in general. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's another exciting space that they're working on. They've basically used 3D modeling software to make a basement, for example, and they show through the whole process of this is what your basement might look like now. This is what it will look like when we're done with it. And it goes through a step-by-step process that the customer can actually wear in their own home and see that process occur. So in terms of selling our services to a customer who might need them, we feel like we can show that customer why we're the best in the industry at what we do.
Oh, neat. So you guys actually have applied that sort of thing to your work. Oh, that's really
for sure. Yeah, any kind of industry, we try to make sure that we're on the forefront of it, not only for ourselves, but for the contractors in the network.
Oh, that's really neat. Cool. Before I have another question, but before I ask, how involved are you in the content creation process as the IT lead?
Not very involved, to be honest.
Okay.
That team kind of operates on their own, and the IT team, myself and 2 other team members, are there to support them. So we have to make sure that they have what they need to do their jobs.
Okay.
To that, Brandon, with the IT is usually when things are going right, it's in the background and you don't hear a lot from them until something goes wrong. Have you noticed, the greater importance being putting on the work that you do since COVID has happened? And then the second part of that is just, do things kind of go back to normal, or do you believe there's technologies or changes to processes at Contractor Nation that will be implemented kind of permanently, something that may be best practices that you've learned going through all this?
Yeah, for sure. We have basically 2 types of problems or issues that we deal with, one being projects. And those projects can either be things that we're fixing or things that we're doing to make sure things don't break in the future. And we also have tickets. So we have a help desk system. Anyone has a problem at all in the company, they put in a ticket and we're there for them. Those are primarily our 2 most important things that we do on a day-to-day basis, is projects and tickets. And then as far as, the future, I think things are going to change for sure. I think I've heard real estate, for example, is going to have a tough time finding companies that want to rent office space now that it's kind of been demonstrated to everyone that it is possible to work remotely and it is possible to work from home.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that with office space, with the building and stuff. So you hear of all this pent up demand in the economy, and that will probably spill over into like travel, and people have been cooped up for so long. But you're right, some of these other things, it has opened up. I believe, our first remote employee that was outside of the Seattle area. And I remember for the first, year and a half, stumbling through in 2013 how to connect with my coworkers. And that's really been the biggest challenge over the years, is keeping that connection. And I can travel to Seattle, well, up until the last year when I want, but that is something that is very IT related, but not something that has been a focus. I think there's many companies who felt like unless you were sitting in a seat or in an office, that you weren't being productive and you needed to be monitored. But have you seen any change in that, Brandon, where your company or others that you've worked with are more open to, they've kind of been forced to, but do you think that will be scaled back drastically, or do you see kind of a change in opinion about remote workers?
I think there's probably a balance to both. I think some people might realize that they need a day to work from home just to get out of the office. And I, at the same time, think, always working from home, you kind of lose that connection with coworkers, and it might make sense to do something that's more staggered in and out. But either way, I know we might lose on our end some of the business of real estate, property owners in corporate commercial space that have problems, for example, with a foundation repair. That's something that we have contractors in our network that can fix. However, the people are now working at home, and they realize that they need more space to do work away from the kids and away from the chaos. Maybe it's time to waterproof that basement and finish it and make it a nice office space. And maybe all this time at home, you realize, the roof is kind of leaking a little bit. We should get that fixed. And, all this junk that we have in the house, maybe a junk removal company that we have in our network can remove it for us. And, all these contractors in our network have realized that this has kind of been an interesting challenge to overcome, but that there are some, sadly or not so sadly, benefits to what has happened.
How often, Brandon, do you bring the contractors together? It sounds like you have at least an annual gathering. Speak to that a little bit. Like, what is it that you guys do? What are you looking for when you have these large events and can bring them together?
Yeah, for sure. So 2 times a year, we have what are known as super trainings. And those are the services that mainly our associations offer. So we have a association known as Dr. Energy Saver. And the idea of that association is to go into a home and make it more comfortable and make it more energy efficient to save you money on a monthly basis, whether it be heating and cooling. We have an association known as Klaus Roofing Systems, which is our roofing association. So we can show folks, the right way that contractors should be roofing these homes to make sure they last for 50 years. Not the standard 25. Right? Yeah, exactly. And that's something that we stand by. We also, obviously, our basement systems is probably our most known association. So we help make sure that our dealers are on top of the best way to get the job done, working with their teams and the equipment and making sure the jobs are going smoothly. And they realize that the more jobs that they're able to do, the less teams they actually need to have, which means the more money for the workers, as they usually pay on a per job basis. Mm-hmm. So the more jobs that they're able to get done, the more money they make.
Yeah. Do you manage I'm sure, just the PCs, all the computing power that's required, but do you also, Brandon, does your team also manage in terms of like drones and storage and all the video equipment that's required to create this content?
We're happy to do that, but luckily that team is so knowledgeable and experienced in that area that they're able to manage most of that stuff themselves.
So you're not out there flying the drones, huh, Brandon?
Unfortunately not.
Nuts. Well, actually, to tag off of that, then, what are some of the biggest headaches that you encounter as an IT lead for all of this?
I guess it's the not knowing what today is going to bring. It's good and bad. Every day is different, but it's hard to sometimes stay on top of the next thing that's going to go wrong if we're not quite sure what that is. Sure. So we always believe in documentation. So whenever we fix a problem, we document the problem and what happened and how it was fixed. Mm-hmm. And so that the next time it happens, it can be fixed easily. Or hopefully it never happens again. But yeah, I'd say that's probably most important. But at the end of the day, we do that, and then something that we've never had happens the next day, and it's kind of a cycle like that. But yeah. I'll knock on wood, things have been pretty good as of recent.
Right on. Like, what kind of things specifically go wrong for you guys?
It could be anything from a local server that we have in the server room that backs up to another server. For some reason, 10 years I've been here, one time it's not doing its job properly. And so, okay, time to learn Linux again. Oh, wow. haven't used it in a while since it hasn't been broken in a while, that type of thing.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool. I'm curious about your experience with Puget as well. Versus, I mean, did you guys? So, let me expand on that a little bit. Before working with Puget, did you guys have a contract like with Dell or HP? Did you work with another vendor?
Not for these types of machines. We knew these were going to be power hungry machines. And the director of IT who previously worked with the company had used you guys for their first 2 or 4 orders, somewhere around that. And so, I stuck with that and to really have a good hands-on experience with the original orders. So I didn't know what to expect, but my mind was completely blown at the level of customer service you guys have, and the amount of detail you get when you get one of these machines and the pictures of the thermo imaging and all that type of thing.
Oh, that's cool. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. I always like hearing when we make people happy. So,
Exactly.
yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm curious, looking forward, what sort of things that are on the horizon do you think, like you said you're constantly learning and there's new challenges every day. What sort of things do you see coming that'll affect not well your role as IT lead, but then also like the construction industry as a whole, maybe?
Yeah, I'd say as an IT lead, it's probably how technology is changing. I know, going to the cloud is another kind of cliche at this point, but it's true. A lot of services are going that way, and the fewer things that we have in house that can break physically, almost the better in my eyes, because we now have a company or a service that handles that for us remotely. And they manage that. And if things go wrong, now I can point a finger and get on a phone in terms of, delegating that to a different company or kind of offloading it.
And is there any changes on the horizon for construction in general?
Construction, I think we probably touched on it a little bit with VR. I think just being able to be, a salesperson for a contractor and to go into a customer's home and put these, goggles on them that have been sanitized and are given at a distance, that type of thing. But they can, really see what's going to happen to their home on a step-by-step basis. You see the jackhammer going across the basement and creating little trenches that the water can then flow into. So instead of getting it on your nice, on the floor and start flooding, all the stuff you have in your basement, it's instead going into trenches that make its way to a sump pump and then pushed out to your yard at a distance. So that type of thing.
That's really cool. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed seeing some of the visualization aspect of things. It's not just, it's kind of hard to visualize sometimes when it's just drawings or as I just bought a house that is new construction. It was difficult to know what it was going to be, picking out tile and things like that. So it is really cool to see those advancements in it. In fact, actually touching on that, what software do you guys use for that?
For the sales process,
or the visualization part, at least for the.
So that same software team I told you about earlier that created the content management system actually created the VR program, and then the animations behind it were made by the media production team. So,
wow,
it's kind of a lot of teams internally in our company working together to get used to different types of technology that are emerging.
Right on. That's cool. I wouldn't have expected it to be all in-house. A lot of times you hear like Unreal Engine and things like that are being used to simplify that. But that's really neat that you guys have such a strong team that you can customize that sort of a thing. Is there any particular reason that you guys built it yourselves instead of using something like Unreal or Unity or something?
It's very possible that those engines might be used by them, but they are at the end of the day developing it from scratch, from them, maybe not from scratch, but themselves. It's not like we're using an outside company to have this product made for us, that type of thing.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, right. That's neat.
Does your team, Brandon, kind of look to you as to provide them like with new technology to kind of keep them educated on, something like drones, like you said 10 years ago? Is that something that like you keep a heads up for? You're reading trade magazines and can keep up on what's changing, and so that you can go back to these product teams and say, hey, this is on the horizon, or maybe we should try this new technology. Is that part of your job?
For sure. Yeah, I would say it's a fair balance, though. They see something, that another company did. They come to us and say, how can we do it? And at the same time, myself and the team might see something that we think, oh, that would be cool if that team was doing that. And we bring it to them and say, hey, have you guys considered this? And we go from there. Yeah.
Cool. It's fun being on a team that's open, like that. I've been on some that are so locked down, they found their solution. That's what they're sticking with, whether it's, Windows or Linux or Mac or,
Exactly.
But also, are there people on the creative team that use Macs, that use Linux machines, or is it you guys mostly a Windows shop? But tell me a little bit about, are there people on tablets or Microsoft Surfaces? How agnostic are you guys in terms of the compute power that you use?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say most of our standard users use Dell laptops. But the software team, I know at one point we'd basically just give them a desktop and they would do what they want with it in terms of Linux and that type of thing. And
so
then,
they have some flexibility on what software they use. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
sure.
the systems that we built for you guys, those are the ones that are specifically running like Adobe Creative Cloud, right?
Exactly.
DaVinci. Okay.
Yep,
So it's
sure.
because the needs, they need more performance that they couldn't get on a Dell laptop.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then we do have graphics teams, and they love their Macs, and they have their iMacs. So
Yeah.
we have a pretty good amount of diversity here in terms of
Yeah,
operating.
it's become easier over the years too to switch between the two. And I'm admitting here, I've been with Puget Systems and spent a few years at Microsoft. So I started on Windows, but I also have a Mac that I travel with, and I don't know. I'm kind of glad that the OS wars seem to be subsiding, because for a while there, it felt like you had to take a side or another. And today, with the cloud services, with SaaS, it's really becomes a non-issue switching between the two. I mean, I prefer Windows, but I have family and friends that prefer something else, and that works for them. So that's good to hear. And I think the companies that allow that choice internally is a smart way to go.
I agree. I mean, I use a MacBook Pro, but I use VMware Fusion to make sure I do have that Windows 10 available when I need it.
Yeah. Well, being an IT, like, you're usually the one that, like, you come after. Oh, IT gets hold of the system before I get it, and they drop an image down on it. And it's like, is it that strict there, Brandon, or do you allow people to kind of run what they need to do their job, or are there specific, like, profiles, somebody, you drop an image down on their box and that's what they get, or can they customize it?
It's pretty much customizable. I mean, leadership here is really good about realizing that leadership itself is about, serving, the people that are on their team and giving them what they need to do the job. And so that's something that's kind of goes throughout all our companies, and we think everyone enjoys that.
Good. Well, I hope I hoped if I have a work at another place, Brandon, I have an IT person as open as you are, because I've had the opposite, where it's like you load on a piece of chat software or something and it notifies them, and that night it gets taken off. So yeah, well, and there's probably a balance, right, of like making sure that they're secure and safe, especially at home, and they're using VPNs, making sure that making sure their information that they have that needs to be private is kept private. And so there's probably best practices that you can help them
Exactly. All of our machines, Windows at least, are on the company domain. We're administrators of that domain. So if someone needs to install something, we do have to help them do that. And it's as simple as asking their team lead if it's okay if that piece of software is on their machine. And it's almost 99% always a yes.
Yeah. That's cool. I like that. That's a good kind of balance, like you were saying, of there is a bit of restriction. It's not just like, here you go, do whatever you want, but there's still a flexibility to customize that experience for the individual. That's really nice, because
Exactly.
it crossed my mind, like, man, it's got to be hard to administer all of that, to support all these different devices and things like that if you just let them all go willy-nilly.
Oh yeah, we tried that before. There's some ransomware involved, and after that, endpoint protection on everything. We're administrators. If you want something, please let us know. We'll make it happen for you. But since then, again, I'll knock on wood, but no problems.
Good.
Right on. I'm curious, just from I guess from the support side, what has been an interesting challenge or that you've encountered in all of this in the 10 years?
Interesting challenge. I tend to lean back on that, never knowing what's going to happen next, never knowing what the next ticket is. You might have a light day or a light morning and realize, something crazy goes wrong in the afternoon, and it could take, 3 weeks to figure out this next issue that you're not sure what it is. And you have to work with vendors and third parties, and, you're on message boards and you're trying to figure out how can I solve this, and that type of thing.
Yeah.
And then the next week it could be completely, dead, for example.
Sure.
No tickets coming in, and you're kind of just working on projects to make things better in the future.
Right on. That's pretty cool. Let me see. I have a couple other list of things here. Actually, I don't know. Brett, do you have any question?
I guess what are, just thinking, there's a lot of talk right now about like privacy and tracking, and after we've had these elections and hackers getting into things, social media, clearly we've seen Facebook and Twitter be called to these like congressional hearings. I guess I'd be interested in you. Are there concerns around that you have, like being in IT, or do you think that those are the right concerns to be, top of mind right now? Or are there other things happening that you see in your role that we should be as concerned with? I mean, you mentioned malware. It's something that doesn't get it, kind of, a lot of companies that hits, they don't necessarily want to come forward and admit that happened. But are there other technologies or concerns that you have that keep you up at night?
I would say the thing that concerns me most is probably the average user of the internet, and them understanding, that there are certain protocols that they should follow to be more secure, whether it be, the type of passwords they use or the type of information that they're giving out to others. At the end of the day, we think user training is the most important aspect of security.
Mm-hmm.
So we tend to put our foot on that pedal in terms of sending out emails, kind of educating users on the types of things that they should be doing. And just kind of understanding that anything that you do on the internet, whether you think it's private or not, just assume it isn't.
Right.
It's tough at a certain point where you're making a purchase and you have to enter a credit card, and do you want that credit card to be saved on your Google profile and that type of thing? There are decisions that you have to make that put up barriers with security. You could be extra safe, but that does make things a little more difficult when it's time to make a purchase on Amazon and that type of thing. So there's a little bit of give and take in, making things easier versus putting up another security barrier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's certainly a balance, right, about letting people do what they need to do, but also maintain privacy and,
Sure. Yeah, there's people that say, you make sure your passwords are at least 12 characters, and, they have a lowercase, uppercase number, and, then there's the people that say you shouldn't even know what your password is. Just write it down, or use like a password, application,
Mm-hmm.
like a password safe that you can pull up, and then you can, but then when it's time to actually get into that account, and, you need to get in there quickly. Now you got to pull out your phone, or, it creates more time that you need to take to actually, work and get on with your life.
Yeah. I was, you probably get asked to help family and relatives like with their computing needs. But I'm always like astounded when I'm asked to go like install a printer driver, and they've got 4 or 5 sticky notes of their Gmail password, their Amazon password, and it's really not their fault. You're right. Like you're talking about the regular user, they don't know about LastPass or OnePass or password managers, and they've been asked to change it, and they've heard, and so it's by the time I can't even imagine how many saved passwords I have into my browser, but dozens. There's just no way you could keep track of all this stuff. So
exactly. And then there's the idea that, you shouldn't, stay logged into certain sites. You should always log out, and sure, that's great if your, device is taken and that type of thing. But then, who could be logging into all these websites themselves all day?
Right.
On the security side of things, I'm kind of looking forward to an expansion of security keys, right? We've kind of evolved from something like a password, and we're moving on into, and then you have things like Face ID, which is something you are, biometrics and things like that, to something you have. And I find that evolution to be really interesting, because like you have things like two-factor authentication, which is kind of what you have. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to things like, I think Google has it's like a USB key kind of thing, and you stick that in and it unlocks stuff for you and that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be really neat. I'm excited for, just because like it's hard to balance ease of use with security.
Exactly.
Yeah. There is a comment that might be a question from Twitch. Diddy again. It says, he says, it sounds like Brandon runs a normal ITIL service system management. I asked him to expand on that a little bit, because I'm not really sure what he means by that.
That's fair. I know that there are organizations and foundations in the IT space that have different standards and things that they recommend that are most safe and things that you should do. We're always keeping our ears open and trying to follow best practices for sure.
Okay, because that was a new term for me, the ITIL service system management. I'm not sure what that means exactly. That's why I'd asked him to kind of expand on that a little bit. Actually, you seem to recognize that term. What is that?
I'm familiar with the abbreviation. I couldn't tell you exactly what the abbreviation stands for. But,
so in context, what is an ITIL service system then?
I'd honestly have to look it up.
But don't worry about it.
In general, it's just best practices and industry standards for IT.
Oh, okay, that's cool. I was hoping you would, give a little more detail into that, because that was a new one for me. I usually am pretty savvy about these things. So.
I feel like there are new acronyms every day.
Oh, yeah, right? Especially in IT.
Yeah, it's always something. I'm curious. So you'd mentioned that you try and stay up on top of things. What resources do you turn to for just staying apprised in your ongoing education for IT?
Usually it's what you see other companies doing, and also a mix of surfing the internet and seeing what you're kind of being advertised, that type of thing. What other people are doing online in terms of forums and message boards, and that type of space for sure.
Okay. Anything in particular that comes to mind?
I think we covered most of the technologies that you hear most about, but nothing I could think of specifically.
Okay. No particular forum or website you go to on the regular?
I think there's a good Reddit subreddit called sysadmin.
Okay.
So I tend to surf there and kind of browse and see what they're doing on their end. Yeah.
So this one's going to be really broad. Do you have any sort of advice for other folk who are in your position? Anything that maybe you've learned specifically from working with this industry? Just any cool words of advice or tips for other IT leads out there?
Yeah, I guess I'd lean more towards on the leadership side of things. And again, just understanding that you're there to serve the team, train them, remove barriers for them, love them and trust them, let them make mistakes that they can learn from, that type of thing. And just kind of seeing yourself more as a leader and, you obviously need to be experienced and understand technology and keep up with what's happening in that space. But if you have a team under you, that they're usually more than happy to do that for you, so that you can focus on what we call HVAs, or higher value activities within the company. And you can kind of, gives you a little bit of time to kind of see what other teams are doing, and how you can help other teams in your company. And it kind of stops these silos being created where you kind of are an IT guy and everyone sees you as the IT person. And instead they see you as a resource, or a tool, if you will, that they can use to help better their team with technology or otherwise.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I think that's important too. The people side of stuff. I think I've felt recently that has been a kind of a bigger focus for a lot of management. It's less about less stick, more carrot, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is an interesting take, because oftentimes it seems that especially in bigger companies, that it isn't so much like there's the difference between a boss and a leader, right? And there's definitely been a shift in that mentality lately that I've seen, at least, and which is really nice, because you work with people, that they're not just cogs in the machine, and it makes a big difference to be recognized as like a human being and not just a number.
I think so.
Yeah, your point about being a resource, I think that's key. Is we've all worked at companies where the last thing you wanted to do is to go to IT with anything, because you were just going to get yelled at. Right. And so a different approach is like, hey, I have this problem. What do we have that can help me get over it? So I'm glad to hear that changing. And like you said, working with Puget Systems, because you could have come in as the IT lead and say, hey, we're going to build these machines, or we're going to go with somebody that, maybe knocks a few $100s off the price or whatever. But it's good to see, no, this by going with more reliable systems allows me to focus on these higher value, projects instead of maintaining janky machines.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We're glad, we're glad, Brandon, that you went that direction.
Thank you. Yeah, we're big on value here. So if there's ever a situation where you're negotiating over something, you got to think about, do I want to negotiate a lower price, or can I instead negotiate more value on the other end?
Yeah. Value can be seen, you're right, across a wide spectrum of maybe up front, something costs a little bit more, but over the long run, the value wins out over sheer cost. So that's approach we've tried to take and focus on companies like yours that appreciate that value. There is some training, being on the consulting side and seeing sometimes it takes a little education, or somebody's not quite there yet. But we're seeing that in the industry as well, as people want to spend less time troubleshooting their equipment. Whether it's a workstation or laptop or storage or file server, and some of this is just using higher quality gear. Some of it may be using, like you said, offsite services or third-party cloud services that allow them to focus. So I guess that's the part that keeps Houston and I up at night, is making sure we're on the right, that we're building still, systems and solutions that our customers need. And it sounds like that's similar with what Contractor Nation does as well.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool. I always come back to the thought of time. That's what it ends up really being sold, right? Is the time. Whether it's making sure that the thing gets built on time or finished within the right window, or saving 15 minutes on an export for a video, anything like that. It always comes back to selling time, and that's what I've found, at least in all of this. That it's always a topic that comes up, like, oh man, we were able to either do more in the same amount of time or get things done quicker. And
exactly.
That's super huge.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at a company, the more that you're able to do and that the team is able to do themselves, it means the less people you have to hire. And so what we've seen, at least in our companies, is that payroll is usually one of the highest expense that a company has. And the less people you have to pay, because our teams are able to do more with the systems and machines that you've helped build for them. Less people, more profit, and now we have an opportunity in our team members to, at the annual review, to say, I think I deserve a raise, and the company actually has money to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right on. Let's see. It looks like we're right about at our hour here. So, is there anything you'd like to mention or shout out or highlight before we go?
Really, just to thank you guys. I really appreciate you having me on this, and had a lot of fun.
Oh, good.
Right. If anyone has any questions about what we do here at Contractor Nation, feel free to reach out to me at bcarr, BCARR, at contractornation.com. If there's a contractor in your area that you need a service done, we'll help you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Oh, go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, good to finally meet you, Brandon. It was a joy working with the case study. I'm glad that you reached out. It was always fun to talk with someone with the IT background, and really interesting for our customers to hear your perspective today.
You as well, Brett. It was amazing.
Yeah. So thank you, Brandon, for taking time out of the day, and you as well, Brett, for joining us today as well. It was a lot of fun having an extra person on. It makes things a little more fun. I like that.
I wanted to meet Brandon. Yes.
And I'd also like to thank the audience as well for joining us today on our Workflow Wednesday. We do this every Wednesday and Friday. Wednesdays, we bring in outside experts like Brandon to talk about how they get things done, their workflow and process, tips and tricks and things. And then on Fridays, we bring in a member of our lads team and soon to be support and consulting to kind of give you guys a bit of a peek behind the curtain of what we do and how we can help you get your job done better. So I think that's it. Oh, yeah. Mark your calendars. Wednesdays, Fridays, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we'll see y'all next time. Bye.